What's up, everyone? I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, enjoying your Monday, I hope you enjoyed your weekend, but let's get right into it. The news was just crazy and filled with crime over the weekend as crime spikes during the summer anyways, but it's particularly spiking more and more in cities that are getting more attention, as they should be, especially one city in particular. But as always, the media only focuses on New York because so many of them live in New York, so they all are freaking out about New York crime, but won't bat an eye about what's going on in Chicago, as always. But I lived in Chicago. I love that city. Hate the mayor, hate the politics. As the day I moved to Chicago, somebody looked at me and said, "Welcome to Crook County." And I thought, what does that mean? Well, I had to learn about the politics that went on there, and I see what they mean. As Democrats now are pushing more and more for gun control, that won't stop anything of what's going on in these cities. As always, they never address as Kamala says, the root issue. As she goes after the root issue and goes to the border, but what border town does she go to? Not the root town of the root issue. She goes to one that is 10 and a half, 11 hours away. That is what her version of going to the root issue is. She goes to Guatemala on a fun little trip and gets to hang out with her friends and is not welcomed by anyone, which I love. But let's get into the news of the week. And guys, if you don't mind to share this video with all your friends and family, put it on every social media platform. Right now, I'm in Instagram jail, so hopefully you can too if you share my stuff. Fight back on this stuff, but let's get right into it. This weekend alone in Chicago, I've seen reports of 75 people shot, 70 people, 72, so I went right in the middle. 5 people killed in Chicago this weekend, 5 people, but most importantly, 72 freaking people were shot in Chicago just this weekend. 72. Last weekend was 47. Sky's the limit, people. Bitcoin to the moon. 72 people shot. I lived in Chicago for a long time. This is what the Democrats have always said about Chicago, is that they think all these criminals, these gang members, are getting in their cars and they're driving down to Gary, Indiana, or just another place in Indiana, and they're purchasing their guns legally, then driving all the way across state lines with their legally purchased guns, and then they're shooting people. Now, it doesn't take a freaking scientist to know that that's probably not the case. One would assume that there is a lot of stolen guns being shot at people, and one would assume that a lot of these guns are illegal and maybe taken from Mexico, taken from Canada. Stolen off people, stolen from pawn shops. Because if anyone has watched the news in Chicago, criminals are stealing things from stores nonstop, so much so that stores are closing, like another CVS just closed. These cops are swamped, overrun, and exhausted. And not only that, their mayor and politicians in the state and city do not back them and do not support even the good cops. They want these woke cops. They want to get rid of the good cops and put in these woke cops who just sit by and do nothing. These Democrats do not care about crime. They don't. And they make it too easy. The crime and punishment, the rule and order push on the conservative party is getting more attention lately because they're going to lose big in the next election as they continue to allow crime to spike. Their big push is assault weapons ban. They can't define what an assault weapon is because neither can I, but they assume you have an idea in your head when they say that word. But when they use words like assault weapons, when they can't define it, that means they can define it, and then they can push whatever control. As always, these politicians do not care about your safety. They care about control and controlling the narrative. Those two things. 72 people were shot in Chicago this weekend, and the media didn't bat an eye. But because New York is getting worse, the media is starting to pick up attention because they live in New York. They're scared for themselves. Chicago is in a lot of areas is very scary to live. I've lived there. There's times of the night where you just won't go outside because you don't want to be involved in any crime whatsoever, and you're kind of scared to move. I used to ride the red line and the brown line all the time late at night, And there would be times I'd be feared for my life. But those of you watching the video that are just listening to audio, but here's a video of where all the shootings were this weekend. So, yeah, a lot in the south side and the west side, but even in the north a little bit, in Logan Square and areas like that, where Logan Square is a very hipster area, as you will. It's because it's a little cheaper to live, and but it's actually a cool neighborhood. And as always, the victims range from the age of 21 years old to 57 years old. Young people being shot. New York right now is getting more attention as New York's Pride participants collapsed with police and celebrations that turned violent. As you saw, there's this video being passed around, this New York vendor, this hot dog vendor, just getting beaten up by people, and the cops just slowly walking over and just being like, okay, guys, we're just gonna stop that. Cops are swamped, overrun, as they're being told they're being defunded, and that we don't want to defund police. We want police reform, whatever that freaking word means. Democrats like to use words that don't mean what they actually mean in their eyes. They just will say things like COVID relief bill, and turns out we're bailing everyone out, and we'll give you some relief. Hey, this is an infrastructure bill, but it's really our bill to pass green energy, which we've been trying to push our whole life, not an actual roads and internet bill like they say. New York City this weekend had 27 people shot as the city grapples with somebody crime and anti-Semitism, said officials. More and more people are being shot. And the media, the left side media, isn't saying anything right now. As you're seeing on CNN, their main top stories are the COVID variant, and for good reason, the Florida building being collapsed. And that is just a terrible, sad story in itself. But that's their main two pushes. They're not talking about crime. They don't care about crime. I continue to say that. They see crime as like a racist issue that stems from racism, or it's just that these kids want to work, but the only work they can find is crime. As if you're poor, the only way to get from being not poor anymore is through crime. That's the only way. I was poor growing up. There are ways to get out of your situation that don't have to do with crime, as if crime isn't pushed constantly. And New York City violence, 27 people shot, nothing. Somebody actually challenged Lori Lightfoot, which I'm so thankful for, News freaking Max, saying, "You've lost control of the city." Let's watch this.
Mayor Lightfoot, what I think...
Introduce yourself, sir?
Yes.
I don't think I'm familiar with you.
Oh, I'm not familiar with you. I don't know what this Newsmax is. You're not a real news organization, because you might actually ask me a real question that pushes me on my real policies instead of just talking about how the deep-rooted racism in Chicago.
William Kelly, I'm with Newsmax. What I think everybody knows, but you didn't mention, I don't think any of your speakers here today mentioned it, is the reason why the hotels are empty, the reason why the storefronts are closed, is because of fear of violent crime.
No, sir.
Exactly. That's 100% the reason why. I don't want to go back to Chicago. And that's 100% why stores close. They're not closing because they're like, wow. And they're not like all employed by white people and like, there's just too many black people here. We're leaving. It's too hard out here. No, it's because people are going in stores, stealing stuff, robbing people, gunshots are everywhere, and the criminals are getting off. And not only that, just the murders that happen nonstop every weekend.
If I may ask my question, it's a simple question. There's a pregnant woman was shot at a hotel across the street from here last week at 4 p.m.
Look at her. He just said a pregnant woman was shot across the street, and she's just like, I don't care. She's numb. She doesn't care. She's not even thinking about it.
You know, of course, we have this horrific Juneteenth, 50-some shootings. A young Hispanic couple pulled from their car and shot execution style. This video has gone viral. I don't think we've had any arrests in this case yet.
Video. Don't watch that.
A tourist came to Chicago and was stabbed in the back and murdered on Juneteenth here in the city of Chicago. Our police chief referred to the location of the stabbing as a homeless camp. Last time, I was born and raised in Chicago. I always considered it to be the financial district of Chicago, not a homeless camp.
Do you have a question, sir?
Do you see that lady? The lady right there, the lady that's behind him told him to hurry up.
Yeah, so my question is, do you feel personally responsible for the your rhetoric, your
Thank you.
heated rhetoric is responsible for this off-the-charts violent crime in the city of Chicago?
So,
No, that's, you asked several questions.
Oh, no, I have a follow-up. No, I only asked one question.
okay. So,
White reporter in the house.
so you know what? That's
Do you hear the media that is getting angry at this question? That just shows you the bias of what's in that room. They're just like, oh my God, I can't believe you would ask that question. I know people are getting murdered all the time, but let's talk about global warming and racism right now. That's the main issue that's going on in the city. Now, the fact that 72 people were shot this weekend and then 50 were shot last weekend, that's not an issue. It's we need to defund the police and reform our police. It's our police's fault. Let's keep watching.
that's not appropriate, sir. If you look around you, sir.
What's not appropriate?
You're surrounded
Okay.
by white reporters. So I really ask you
Okay.
to.
Do you
hold
feel
on,
responsible?
Sir. Let me.
Here we go.
answer the question
Now she's
that
a
you've already
victim.
asked. So, I don't know where you're from. I
said
know,
Chicago.
I know what magazine you're from.
Born and raised
I-
Southside Chicago. Southside Chicago is very dangerous, and I'm sure
I know what your conservative viewpoints are.
Oh
but
my
on
God.
almost every question that you ask, you had the facts wrong. So here's what I will say
What?
in answer to about the 15 questions that you just asked.
So those people
No
weren't murdered.
one thinks that a single act of violence is ever acceptable, least of all me. The hotels are where they are here in Chicago, as they are
the
across
hotel's
the
fault.
country because of economic shutdown related to COVID-19. So that the premise of your very first question is fundamentally flawed and wrong.
Stupid.
And you can have your opinion on it, but I got the facts. And what we're here to celebrate is the
Hey.
reopening.
And there's a good old leftist right there. Hey, you're not allowed to ask questions because I have the science. I have the facts. This is the science. This is the facts. Not those people were actually murdered. Yeah, sure. And I am losing the city.
The great enthusiasm that our residents and our tourists have. If you look at the actual facts, sir, what you're going to find is that on our weekends, when people are engaging in leisure travel, our hotels are seeing unprecedented levels of occupancy, in some instances higher than pre-pandemic. I think that speaks to the nature of our city and the value that people.
She doesn't even know. She doesn't know. She doesn't care. 72 people shot. I don't care. Who cares about those citizens? Am I right? It's honestly unbelievable.
Place
Typical
being here in the
politician.
city. Another data point that maybe you're not aware of, but I will share with you.
Please.
Over the course of this pandemic, we've had 32 plus relocations of corporate businesses to the city of Chicago. Businesses that could have relocated anywhere but chose Chicago. Why? Because we have a great economy. We have a diversity of our economy. We have a great workforce.
Gotta throw that in. Because that's what's more important in life. It's not actually just, jobs and diversity.
And they're happy to be here because of the values that they find in the city of Chicago. So the premise of your question, which is it's chaos everywhere, and
Yeah,
the fact
72
of the matter
people
is,
shot.
sir, which you also didn't point out, but I will, so we get this straight, is that we're actually seeing a decline in homicides and shootings. Yes, sir. You
What?
Sir, we are
No,
done.
sir. Okay.
We're done.
No. Let him ask his follow-up question so he doesn't claim that somehow we're being biased and slighting
Oh my
the guy
God.
from Newsmax. Please, sir. It's 6:30 going on 7.
Right. There's no bias. I'm just angrily talking to you and angrily pointing out to you, even though you're spouting out facts and reminding me of how terrible of a job I'm doing.
That's your follow-up question.
Well, my follow-up question is simply this. Many residents in Chicago feel that you've lost control of the city. Now it appears as though you've lost control of the Chicago City Council. Do you owe an apology to the victims of violent crime, the thousands of unsolved shootings and murders and stabbings and random stabbings in the downtown and the south side and the north side and the west side? Do you owe these people any apology?
So once again, sir, I ask you to get your facts right.
Look, her assistant just took his microphone.
Crime is not out of control in our city. In fact,
Oh my God. How do you say that?
crime is on the decline. All of our major indices showed a decline in crime, and our homicides
This is literally
and our shootings
insanity.
year over year are down. That's a fact.
Wrong.
And
It's not a fact.
Sir,
You're wrong.
I was polite
lying.
and allowed you to spew your rhetoric,
Right, and he's not allowing you just to lie.
which is offensive to me and others, but
Why?
I'm trying to be polite and professional and answer your question. But if you want to write your own narrative and irrelevant to what I'm going to say and what the facts are, then we'll just move on to the next reporter.
That's right. This is where we're at in our country. You know, you're not allowed to actually look at statistics because A, statistics are racist, and B, you can't just ask these questions. You can't push these reporters. You can't push Kamala Harris because if you push her, it's rhetoric and it's talking points. It's not just questions. It's like looking at me, knowing that I have red hair and going, do you know that you have red hair? Hey, that's just a talking point. Okay, I'm not going to talk about that. And let's keep going. MSNBC guest tells us why there's so much crime. And the video doesn't work. Let's restart it. Story of my life.
Absolutely.
All right, here we go.
We're going to be talking about this a lot more later in the hour. So I kind of want to switch gears and get back to crime because it's interesting, right, that we're talking about an uptick in crime. You just heard the rhetoric circa 1983 that's being, repeated now. Cheryl, I am a little concerned because I know there are people in neighborhoods who have concerns about the violence they've seen. It's interesting that this is happening.
It's refreshing to hear an MSNBC anchor actually say that there's violence.
Happening at the time of defund the police. We have to get to the root of the problem. Why do you think
Oh my God. Don't you love when Democrats start to get a word that they like? Oh, root of the... We like roots. We're all about our roots. Have you seen the Roots? Great band.
Seeing an uptick in crime happening right now?
I think it's a combination of things, and we have to understand that police officers are the backbone. Patrol particularly are the backbone of any police department, and this reminds me of back in the day when I was on LAPD, when officers' feelings were hurt, and they had the term blue flu, where officers openly talked about slow response to radio calls. You can break a police chief if response time is low, if you're not clearing crimes, if you're not responding to high priority calls, shootings in progress, murder, robbery. And so officers now we see across these 18,000 police departments are butthurt because they can't.
I mean, it is funny that she said the word butthurt. That makes me LOL. But that's right. These cops are butthurt. That's why you're seeing an uptick in crime. All these cops are just so butthurt because what does the liberals like to do? What do these people like to do? These two, Bill de Blasio and freaking Lori Lightfoot, as always leftists do. They don't look at people as individuals. They don't look at Derek Chauvin as individuals, some of the other people that did, other cops. They put people in camps. They put people in a collective. It's always the collective over the individual with leftists and liberals. So when they see one cop doing something bad, they say all cops, right? All cops are bastards. You saw that placed everywhere. As conservatives, we look at the individual. We say, you did this. They say, and then they push back and say, we do this. So you had an entire year of leftists and liberals vilifying the police department as if every single one of them are bad. I am not in the camp that says that. I don't do the opposite of what some conservatives do to say every single police officer is good. I look at the individual. I saw police officers arresting and choking out people because they weren't wearing a mask. I don't think those people are good. But then you saw other things of cops going over the top and being really aggressive with people who don't deserve it. And so that is a different... I look at people as individuals. They look at them as the collective. That's why they say... that's why... You can't just have Juneteenth. That's why you can't just have a Black History Month. It has to be black plus this. It can't just be gay rights transgender rights. It's LGBTQ plus, and they include the fist, the communist fist, and then they put their colors and they put them all together because they're saying it's us versus you. It's the oppressor versus the oppressed. And so now their push is that it's not that these two people, Bill de Blasio and Lori Lightfoot, are doing a terrible job in their city, and they're pushing rhetoric of making cops feel like pieces of crap. Could you imagine being a great cop and really enjoying your city and then being told that you have a race problem when your whole life you've been nothing but positive for your community? So you can make fun of the blue flu or butt hurt and stuff like that. How about these people are people and they don't have to do this job. They can quit, or they can go to another state where they're actually appreciated, like, say, maybe Florida, as they get a little pay bump. So I just get so frustrated seeing how these people, like that Newsmax reporter, asking a real question. People are being shot. A pregnant woman was shot across the street from this actual building. A tourist just came here and got shot. This weekend alone, 72 young men were shot. 72. That is a huge crime spike. That is a huge problem in your city. And your answer is that it's rhetoric and it's talking points, and I'm not going to push that agenda. These people do not have empathy for you. They are more worried about themselves and how they look and their narrative and being celebrated by other liberal leftists. That's what they care more about. They care more about fighting racism, what bathroom you go into, than actual people being murdered on their street. I am praying and hoping some of these people actually wake up to this stuff. I don't think it would ever be solved in Chicago, but New York, you sometimes have hope because there's more media attention for New York. There's not enough media attention for what goes on in Chicago. Chicago's an awesome city, beautiful people, some a-holes, but great pizza, lose to the moon. But we're having crime spike like never before. And you're seeing these politicians, instead of addressing it or actually even answering questions, they're just deflecting and talking about other stuff. Should show you where their mind's at and where their empathy level is at. They don't care. They're more worried about themselves looking bad. If I was a mayor of this city and crime was out of control and people were being murdered on the streets, I would have a huge problem with that. More than any other problem. I think people need to feel safe in every neighborhood. There shouldn't just be a crime-ridden neighborhood. Right now, Michael Dukakis warns the Democrats on crime, which is funny because a generation ago, Michael Dukakis saw his chances of winning the presidency crushed by Republican casts him on soft on crime. And that's going to be the big push for Republicans this next election, is that how soft on crime these Democrats are, and these DAs just allowing people to be let go. They're destroying cities, and they just let them go. Kamala Harris bails them out. Democrats are okay with crime. They really are. They're more worried about governmental control and their idea. I see it more and more of their desire for a police state, federally pushed state. Call me crazy, but it doesn't make sense when you have 72 people shot in your city and you don't even address it. And you say that's just talking points, and actually our crime is going down. That is a lie. Michael Dukakis says, the defund the police movement is nuts. The Democrat president nominee in 1988 told the column, I'm saying to myself, my God, this is from The Hill. My God, what the hell is going on here, said Dukakis, added during a 40-minute phone interview from his home in Brookline, Mass. last week. On the other hand, you have folks screaming and yelling about getting rid of the police, which makes no sense at all. Also, they're calling them butt hurt and the blue flu and making fun of that as if, you tell people over and over again they're horrible human beings, and then they actually feel remorse and guilty or just tired of doing that job. It's just like it's like an abuser. You punch somebody in the face and you say, "No, you made me do it. You made me hit you," and then they say, "Oh, you're right." You called police racist. You called to defund them. You told them we have to get rid of our a lot of these We have to cut our funding. We have to change the way we police. If you're not allowed to engage in a police, like in Chicago, you're no longer allowed to chase after someone because there's more damage that could happen from it. You're not allowed to tell them to do their job. And then when they are not doing their job because of your policies, you tell them that they are butthurt. This is insanity. This is insane. I feel like I'm talking in circles. But the Democrats, you are going to lose, and you're going to lose big. And I hope you are, because your policies are creating terrible cities. As more Republicans are saying, get out of the cities for your safety. And their leftist agenda is just unbelievable. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. This has been a weird show. I think I just wake up in the morning. I don't know if you're like me. I wake up in the morning and I see 72 people shot in Chicago. And I see people dying on the streets in an awesome city like that. 27 people shot in New York. And people don't care. And it shows the empathy level of some of these human beings in politics. And it shows the empathy level, not only of that, on some of the liberal media. They care more about making their candidates look good than they do about actual journalism. And and needless to say, if I lived in a Republican-run city, a libertarian-run city, and the same thing was happening, I would call them out on the same. I care about people being murdered in the city streets. I know what it does to the communities, and I know what it does to especially the children that live in these cities. The trauma that they have to experience over and over again due to your policies is sickening, and you should be ashamed of yourself, Lori Lightfoot. I'm so serious. She's evil, and the fact that you won't address it is sad. I can't tell if it's just not knowing what's going on because your news sources that you choose aren't actually reporting on it, or you just don't care. It's one or the other, and I'm assuming it's that you don't care. Thanks, guys, so much for tuning in the Derek O'Shea Show. Sorry, this was like a more depressing show than usual, but it's what they deserve, man. They're ruining cities, they're ruining great American cities, and they don't care. And you're just seeing it push more and more, and they care more about their social justice message than actually about real crime in these cities. And I'm tired of watching videos of people just being murdered in broad daylight over and over again. And their push is for more gun control, as if that is going to solve it. It's not that these kids are actually committing murders. It's that these guns are murdering children. It makes no freaking sense. Take cars away from people because it kills way more people. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Derek O'Shea Show. You might have another segment coming out soon. I hope you guys enjoy your day. Hope your day gets better. If you live in Chicago and New York, get out of those cities. They're terribly run, and I don't see people changing the way they vote because you got these rich, white liberals who don't live in these crime-ridden areas, and they don't care. They just have this fantasy idea of what their city is. Again, and I've talked to liberals who fantasize about the old New York and how dangerous it used to be and just like crime-ridden and just like very artsy and like people didn't live there and it's like cheap to live there and it was like so much more fun than living under Giuliani's regime as he cleaned up the city. This is dumb. Crime creates trauma and creates anxiety and depression in your citizens and keeps people in poverty for the rest of their life, but because businesses won't come to your city because of your crime levels. And you sit there and blink an eye. I want to talk about racism as opposed to, as Kamala says, focusing on the root issue for your citizens. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Derek O'Shea Show. Have a fantastic day.